We welcome you inside the beautiful Moss Art Center here in Blacksburg, Virginia for a special Thursday edition of the 34 Kickoff Show. I'm your host, Kendall Williams, joined alongside Robert Bateman and Wesley Clark. And guys, what a fun slate of games we have this weekend. Obviously, first have to turn to our hometown team here, the Orange of Syracuse, coming to visit the Hokies. A big matchup, lots of ACC contention left. Obviously, a pretty crazy conference this year. Virginia Tech 2-3 in ACC play. Q's 0-3. Rob, what stands out to you about this Virginia Tech squad? Obviously much improved from the beginning of the season.
You're completely right. Incredibly improved. But if we're talking about standouts, Kyron Drones and Bayshal Tootin have absolutely exploded onto the scene for the Hokies when both of them weren't even really in that much of a starting role at the start of the year. So they're the biggest thing that stands out for me. Absolutely.
And Wesley, what do you think Virginia Tech has to do to make sure they secure this ACC win? Again, a lot of big things still in contention for that top spot in the ACC, especially after a lot of upsets last week. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I want an exact game that they had against Wake Forest. You have Drones throwing for over 300 yards. You had 141 yards on the ground, and that defense stepped up consistently. 3 for 14 the Demon Deacons were on third down, and that's what they have to do to win this game, of course, and the addition of Jalen Lane coming back on the offense.
Well, for more on the Hokies, we turn it over to our very own Sarah Luttenberger.
Virginia Tech's past couple of weeks have sparked just a little bit of hope for the Blacksburg fan base. Brushing off their loss to the 4th-ranked Florida State, the Hokies have 2 recent wins and are going into Thursday Night Lights on a week of rest and recovery. After their comfortable win to Wake Forest, the Hokies have brought up their offensive average to 24 points per game. It's still towards the bottom of the ACC rankings, but it's about a touchdown per game of improvement since their first few of the season. Through what felt like 3 different seasons in 4 hours of play, including sun, wind, rain, and then cold, Virginia Tech asserted their dominance over the Demon Deacons with over 4 times the rush yards and double the average yards per play. Kyron Drones continued to establish himself as a solid quarterback, reaching a new career high of 321 passing yards and rushing for 59 yards himself. Drones acts as a dual-threat running back almost as much as he does a quarterback. He's trailing lead rusher Bayshal Tootin by only 16 yards for the whole season. But he's improving every game in the air as well, having 12, then 14, and then 20 completions in the Hokies' last 3 games. The offense still has some work to do, but they seem to be on the up. And on the other side of the ball, the Hokies are holding on to their #1 ranked passing defense in the ACC. And not only are they first in the conference, but they are 8th in the nation for passing yards allowed per game. Now, statistically speaking, the Hokies have a lot of success on Thursday nights. They are historically 23-12 during the primetime slot, but they've split the past 6 Thursday night games in their more recent struggles. With the offense finally meshing and the defense holding their own, maybe it's time for Virginia Tech to turn the tide towards a winning season. Do the Hokies have something spooky up their sleeve? Which team is going to own the Halloween weekend orange? We'll just have to see. Guys?
Thanks, Sarah. Great stuff as always. Guys, I want to kind of turn back to one of Sarah's points, talking about Kyron Drones, a huge improvement that we've seen. On the opposite side for Q's, Garrett Schrader, I feel like had kind of started out good and has had, I would say, maybe a little bit of almost a decline recently. What are your thoughts on that, Wesley?
Yeah, they're not where I expected them to be. And don't get me wrong, they're in a position to get a bowl game, but Schrader has had kind of a down season as a senior. You know, he has 8 touchdowns, he has 5 interceptions compared to last year where he had 17 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. Now, and he's also averaging less completions. Now, I'm expecting him to come to this game and show that he's a senior and he can step up for the Orange.
Yeah, you can definitely tell the Orange miss Aronde Gadsden.
I was going to say, off of that, Rob, what do you think? We had talked both teams coming off a bye week. What do you think the Orange really have to focus on to make sure? Again, they still haven't secured an ACC win yet. This week is very huge for them in their season as to what could be a turning point. What do you think the Orange need to focus on to make sure that they're on against
Tech? I think
Tech?
the biggest thing is that passing defense, it has not been where it needs to be. UNC threw the ball all over SU. So if they want to improve themselves, they got to lock down with their DBs and their cornerbacks.
For more on the Orange and their QB1 in Garrett Schrader, we turn it over to Cody Wagner.
Bend, but don't break. A defensive motto repeated in radio booths across the nation. And maybe the most fitting adage for a Syracuse team that sits at 4-3. This season, SU were undefeated in their first 4. Then they dropped their next 3, landing them at the bottom of the ACC. They've struggled all across the field. Let's start on the offensive side of the ball. Workhorse quarterback number 6, Garrett Schrader, has been the key to their offensive success. Last season, Schrader threw for 17 touchdowns with just 7 interceptions, making him heavily relied upon by offensive coordinator Jason Beck. The best example of this was in a loss to Clemson. Schrader aired the ball out 29 times throughout the contest, and a lot was asked of Schrader in the run department as well, carrying the rock 15 times of the team's total 34 rushes. Believe it or not, Schrader ran the ball more than starting running back LaQuint Allen. The offense has come to a screeching halt these past 3 weeks, scoring a combined 24 points, meaning they've averaged just 8 points a game. Defensively, things haven't been any better. Over the last 3 weeks, the Orangemen have allowed at least 31 points in each game. Scoring 8 points a game and allowing 31 points is not a recipe for success. Their biggest struggle defensively has come against the pass, allowing over 250 pass yards each of the last 3 weeks. This is a soft spot that you should expect the Hokies to attack tomorrow night. Good news for the men in orange, though. The toughest part of their schedule is behind them, having played number 17 North Carolina and number 4 Florida State the last 2 weeks. The Hokies are the only team remaining on their schedule with a winning record in conference play. Coming off a bye week, the Orange were given a well-needed break to try and patch up any holes before they travel to Blacksburg for a Thursday night meeting with the Hokies. If they hope to go bowling in December, the Cuse have to get things turned around quickly. An improved quarterback play from number 6 is going to be key. They have certainly bent, but I expect Thursday night to show if they have, in fact, broken. Kendall.
Thanks, Cody. Now, guys, for more on Thursday night in the history of Virginia Tech and Syracuse, we turn it over to Kyle Marshak.
Virginia Tech and Thursday night football, I hereby pronounce you conjoined in marriage forever and ever, or however that saying goes. Anyways, the point being, there's no hiding here in Blacksburg that the Hokies get lit for some Thursday evening action on the gridiron. Now, for the second consecutive year, the Hokies host Thursday night football in Blacksburg, with a 4-3 Syracuse contingent strolling into the New River Valley in T-minus 24 hours. I actually don't have a watch. Now, I could get into the nitty-gritty of the look of this matchup and all the numbers behind it, but the rest of our 3304 crews got you covered. So how about we take a peek at what this game will feel like instead? See, back in the day, Thursday and Virginia Tech were practically synonymous, and it started with the fact that the Hokies are that team on penultimate days of the work week. Since the rise of Thursday football's prominence in the collegiate ranks back in the early 90s, Virginia Tech is 23-12 in such contests all time. Try continuing that trend by being 12-7 at home, and you turn into one of the most exciting teams to watch on days that ended Y, and start with a TH, of course. I mean, there was a streak from 1998 to 2005 where the Hokies won 11 consecutive Thursday night football games, 11 of them. So the Hokies are successful in such contests, which helps prove my point, but in terms of anecdotal evidence, look no further than the sheer energy Lane Stadium seems to have in these games over the years. I'm not a very violent human being, but when I see 2008 Virginia Tech running back Darren Evans absolutely pummel a ranked Maryland Terrapins linebacker Terrell Skinner, or even just last year when Virginia Tech hosted Black Diamond Trophy rivals in West Virginia, and their Enter Sandman entrance vibrated the souls of Virginia Tech fans throughout Lane Stadium, it just makes me want to run through a brick wall. Saxburg tends to come out on Thursdays too. In 2016, when Virginia Tech hosted Miami and stormed them, winning convincingly 37-16, they collected 4 sacks in just the first half alone, totaling the most sacks they've had in a game prior to, well, just 2 Saturdays ago versus Wake Forest. So maybe we see that version of Virginia Tech tomorrow as well. Ironically, that game was the last time the Hokies have actually won on a Thursday night. As a result, VT has fallen in defeat on Thursday in 3 straight meetings, including 2 losses from last season. But marriage is through health as it is in sickness, right? All right, perhaps one could say that the Hokies are due. I'd imagine the loyal fans have been pretty patient. I mean, it's easy to be when you're having fun regardless, but think about this. Just close your eyes with me. Just try this exercise and imagine. You're just over the hump of the work week. It's 5 o'clock and it's Thursday afternoon. It's time to go home. Just kidding. En route to your neighborhood, you hang a hard right onto Washington Street, and next thing you know, you're in the deafening helm of the East seats in Lane Stadium with maroon and orange all around you. And for some reason, the cool Blacksburg air has an extra buzz to it. Life is good, isn't it? Anyways, my thesis statement. It appears that the blue-collardness of Virginia Tech seems to reward their talent with jubilation in the middle of a work week time and time again. And a lot of fans will be detouring for Lane Stadium on their way home from work for a 7:30 kickoff tomorrow night. So, I don't know about y'all, but I can't wait to see it. That leaves us with one final question. Thursday in Virginia Tech, do you guys say I do?
Thanks, Kyle. Great stuff as always. Guys, it is time for everybody's favorite. We are going to pick them. So let's first start out in the SEC. We've got Georgia traveling down to Florida, Gainesville, crazy environment. Rob, what's your pick in that game?
See, it is the conference where it just means more, and I'm still going to have to go with the Georgia Bulldogs. I feel like they're number one in the nation for a reason. I don't think they lose to the Gators.
34 straight regular season wins is coming to an end this weekend.
Oh my
Give me
gosh.
Florida.
Wow. Unfortunately, I do love the boldness out of that, Wesley, but I'm going to have to go with Rob. I think Georgia's just too much of a powerhouse. I don't think they go down to Florida in Gainesville. Keeping the train rolling in the SEC, guys, we've got Tennessee traveling to Kentucky. What are we thinking there, Wesley?
I'm going to go with Kentucky. You know, they're going to be, I think they'll get into the top 25 if they beat Tennessee, and it's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm personally going to go with the Bulls. I think Tennessee, although they might not be better than Kentucky on paper this year, I think Tennessee has the ability to go win the big matchups when they need to.
I agree. Again, I'm going to have to go with Rob on this one. Although Tennessee isn't playing at home in their big, crazy crowd in Neyland, I do think they do get the job done in Kentucky. Guys, we're going to move out west just a little bit.
Okay.
We've got Oregon at Utah. Crazy matchup. Obviously, a lot of big contentions there. Rob, what are we thinking?
Personally, give me the Ducks. I like Oregon.
Yeah, I'm going to go Oregon as well. I know Utah beat USC last week against Caleb Williams, but Bo Nix will not be losing this weekend.
Looks like this panel's going 3 for 3. I've got the Ducks for that game as well. Continuing our out west train, we've got Air Force at Colorado State. What are we liking there, guys?
Ooh, you know, Colorado State did put up one hell of a matchup against Colorado earlier this year. But when I look at the defenses of these sides, I see guys like Bo Richter and Alec Mock on that Air Force defense. I don't think Colorado State will get many points by them, so give me Air Force.
I'm always pulling for those military schools, so go Air Force.
There you go.
I love it. Guys, I have watched this defense a lot this season. I will say they are very strong, very, very strong. Offense, too, a really impressive #1 rushing team in the country behind quarterback Zach Larrier. A little nervous a couple weeks ago for those Air Force fans as he had a knee injury, but he showed out in Navy, no problem. So I got to go Air Force as well.
There you go.
Continuing, I guess, coming back a little more East Coast, we've got Ohio State headed to Wisconsin. I think this is an interesting one. What do you guys think?
Ooh, who do you got?
I'm going to go for the Buckeyes. A very emotional and physical win against #7 Penn State last week on Big Noon Kickoff. But Kyle McCord, he beat Notre Dame late in the game. He beat Penn State, a very defensive game. Ryan Day hasn't coached in Wisconsin, which is a very hostile environment. It's a 14.5 favor. I'm going to Ohio State, but Wisconsin's going to cover the spread.
See, when I look at this, I don't really have facts to back up either side. So I start looking at mascots. You got a Buckeye. What the heck even is a Buckeye? And you got a Badger. Give me the Badgers. Wisconsin takes it.
Bold pick, Rob. I'm going to have to go with Wesley on this one. I think Ohio State coming off of that really hot win against Penn State, that was definitely one of the bigger matchups last week. I think they're just going to carry that momentum into Wisconsin. Guys, we turn it back now to the ACC.
Here we go.
We've got Duke at Louisville. I think this is definitely one of the games that everyone's going to be talking about this weekend.
Yeah, I agree. And personally, I think both teams have put together absolutely phenomenal seasons. But I think Louisville just edges out Duke in this one.
I agree. Louisville hasn't been this good since they had Lamar Jackson, and they're going to show that they're going to win this game with ease in the first half.
I am going to have to disagree with you guys on this one. I think that Duke went head-to-head with Florida State, who we obviously know has been a very, very, very strong team in the ACC this year. I think they're kind of coming off of that with a little fire under their butts. You know,
Great
I think
point.
they're ready to go. I think they probably took this week and were like, hey, ACC's wide open. We've talked about this before, you know. Some teams had lost last week that were not expected to lose, and it's really still up for grabs. So I think Duke going in to Louisville with that kind of mentality of, hey, we're still in this, and this is our game to prove it and get back in the saddle. I'm going with Duke on this one.
I like it.
And then, guys, obviously, final hometown pick. We've got Syracuse coming in to face off against the Hokies. Thursday night football. What are we liking?
Virginia Tech had a heck of a game against Wake Forest. They had a week off. You know, Jones was able to show they can pass the ball. They finally were able to run consistently. Virginia Tech is going to win this game.
Now, Kyle talked about how Thursdays in Virginia Tech seem to be like a match made in heaven, you know, a married couple. But I'm on the other side. So, Syracuse, I do. Give me the Orangemen.
Well, that's a interesting approach you have there, Rob. I am going to have to go for the hometown team here. I'm really liking Virginia Tech at this point, guys. A couple weeks ago, if you had asked me, I wouldn't have blinked and said Syracuse, but I think the improvement that the Hokies have shown in just the past couple weeks is honestly tremendous. Their defense really seems to be working, figuring things out. You got Kyron Drones on offense, just totally holding down the fort, leading this team. I really like the Hokies, and I think they're going to get it done on Thursday Night Football.
There you go.
Well, guys, that's all we have for today's show. We want to give it a big thanks to our reporters, Cody Wagner, Kyle Marshak, and Sarah Luttenberger, and our production assistants, Kyle Houchin, Sophie Anderson, Pierce McKnight, and of course our panelists, Wesley Clark and Robert Bateman. I'm Kendall Williams saying so long and see you next time on the 3304 Kickoff Show.